There was this rule that was known in the band that if you didn't make mistakes, then you weren't trying hard enough to, play the best you can.
Hi, and welcome to ForBassPlayersOnly.com. I'm John Liebman, founder and first baseman. If you've ever wanted to learn bass, you should know that right now there are thousands of people inside the For Bass Players Only community. A lot of them over 50. And they are learning bass, having a blast, playing the music that they love. You should join them and experience that incredible transformation for yourself. As I always say, you're never too old to groove, so let's play bass. My guest this week is an old friend, Jimmy Haslip. He is a Grammy Award-winning bass player and producer, in addition to being the founding member of the Yellowjackets, with which he played for over 30 years, 32 years, something like that, recorded about 20, 21, 20-something albums. Jimmy has also done a lot of work, a ton of work with Jeff Lorber, and he's worked with everyone from Pat Metheny, Diane Reeves, and Larry Carlton to Kenny Loggins, Joe Cocker, George Harrison, and Kiss. And that's just a very abbreviated list. Always great to have him on For Bass Players Only. Hello, Jimmy. Welcome.
How are you?
I'm great. How are
you.
you? Good to see you, too. We just spoke a couple weeks ago on the phone, and I said, "What's going on? How you doing?" And you rattled off a whole big bunch of projects that you were working on. So let me just throw it out there. What's going on? What's keeping you busy?
Well, since I left the Yellowjackets in 2012, I've just been concentrating on producing and just working, and COVID hit, in 2020. So that kind of delegated me to just being home, working on production projects here in my house. So virtually with, fortunately, my connections with musicians around the world. And it's been fun and, very busy. It's been producing somewhere between 7 to 12 records a year since actually 2013. And it kept going through COVID. And right now, let's see, I produced a bunch of Lorber records. I'm still working with Jeff Lorber. Although he's got a new record out now that I had nothing to do with. I've been kind of busy working on a bunch of other projects with Scott Kinsey. There's a Michael Schmidt record I'm working on right now. I did a big band record with that same artist last year. And now we're working on a very ambitious record now, tentatively called Visions. That's going to feature 11 drummers on 11 songs. So
Wow.
it's that's been quite an interesting adventure. We're about 5 songs into this production, and so far I got songs about 80% done with Dennis Chambers, Ronald Bruner, Zach Danziger. I'm starting to work on something with Vinnie Colaiuta, and I'll be working on something very soon with Gary Novak.
How did that concept come about? That's a little different. I did the opposite. I interviewed Carmine Appice a few
Oh
years.
yeah,
What was it? Guitar Zeus, I think he called it. He had a whole bunch of different guitar players that he played drums on.
right.
But I've done some reviews and talked to some people about lots of different bass players. I can't think of anyone who had 11 different drummers on one record. So how did that idea come up?
Well, I think it was kind of my fault, but the artist that I'm working with is a guy named Michael Schmidt. He lives in Germany, and he was a drummer, but he no longer plays drums, and he just writes music on keyboards and programs drums. But he's a big fan of all these drummers, so he asked me about a few of them. And as we started working, Scott and I started working on this together, I started thinking, well, why don't we just try to get 11 different guys to play on these songs? And Scott thought that was kind of an interesting idea. When I ran it by Michael Schmidt, he loved the idea, so we just decided to go forward and put it together. Um,
Did you know that Dennis Chambers is a pretty darn good bass player?
yes, I even I think he has one of my basses. Yeah, because he collects basses from a lot of the guys.
He's not left-handed, is he? Oh, he doesn't
No,
have to be with you. You
no, he could play my bass. Yeah. So, yeah, he's a great bass player. In fact, a lot of drummers are really good bass players. In fact, I I produced a group called Renegade Creation that I kind of put together um, with Robin Ford, Mike Landau, and Gary Novak. We did two records for a label called Shrapnel. Um,
is that Mike Varney's label?
yes, that was back in the day when he still had the label. So, um, which I was producing Jing Chi records for that label. I did four Jing Chi records for Shrapnel, and before we did the fourth record, Mike approached me about doing another Jing Chi record, and Vinny was unavailable because he was on the road. So he said, well, do you have any other ideas? And I said, well, let me think about it. And in thinking about it, I thought of putting, because Robin was available, I thought of putting a thing together with Robin and Mike Landau, which we used to play together back in the day. And I had been doing a lot of things with Gary Novak. So brought Gary in, he was happy to do it, and Mike Varney liked the idea. And Mike Landau called the group Renegade Creation. We went into the studio, recorded a record. It did kind of good, I think. And there was a tune on that record that Gary Novak wrote, and he had a demo of it with him playing bass on it. And I really liked what he played. And I said, well, why am I going to try to do what you just already did? So why don't we use your bass part? I think maybe I added a note or two here or there because it was a demo, but it was his bass part. So I kept it.
Didn't know that about him. I remember when I was in LA around 1991, 92, and I just kept hearing the name Gary Novak again. I think that was around the time people were just starting to really talk about him, and he was definitely on the rise. And now I see and hear his name everywhere.
He's a monstrous player, I'm fortunate to do work with him. I'm producing a saxophonist right now that lives in Salt Lake City, Utah, and I've been working hand in hand with Jeff Lorber, who's a prolific composer and writes music in the basically the genre that this gentleman Randall Clark is his name really likes, and so we've been using a lot of Jeff Lorber compositions. And Gary Novak's been playing drums on all those. So, um, yeah, so there's that. That's almost done. That's about 80% there right now. I'm working with a guitarist out of Atlanta named Papa Michael, kind of doing a trio record with Simon Phillips. And I brought in Jan Hammer to play on a tune.
I haven't thought
And
about him in a long time.
Yeah, yeah. And so that's in the works. That's almost done, but I've been, working on that. I'm working with this uh Puerto Rican guitarist who lives in Latvia, and we did kind of a modern Caljada record with just percussion, vibraphone, guitar, and bass. That's finished. I'm trying to find a home for that now. And that's called Cambio, which means change in Spanish. And so I'm in post production for that record. Um, I'm working with a British saxophonist named Jamie Harris. That's what I was working on just now before I got on here with you. So, and I almost got completely distracted, and I looked at my watch and thought, "Oh, I better get on Zoom right now." So,
Randy Burnson was another name that keeps coming up when I talk to you. I remember him down in Miami.
y- yeah, and he released a new record recently that I worked on. That's on my Facebook page, and that's a really beautiful record. I can't remember the title of it right
Listened to
now.
something this morning. I was getting ready for this interview, and I saw something with him. I searched his name, and I think it said April 2024, like brand new.
Yeah, it just came out. Yeah. Hmm.
I think there was only one cut available though on
I
iTunes.
think he just released like a single type of thing to get the ball rolling.
But I just remember he had an album called Music for People, Planets, and Washing Machines.
That's right.
Saw him down in I had been in Miami for just a short time, and there was a concert up in Palm Beach, and Herbie Mann was on the bill, and Ramsey Lewis with Buddha. What's his name? Bill. Oh my God.
Oh yeah, from Chicago.
Yeah, yeah, and Gatto Barbieri. But there was a local band. Oh,
Oh,
Randy. Yeah, Randy played with some local Florida guys, South Florida guys. But you know what? I remember the bass player with Gatto was a left-handed bass player. So I'm
oh wow.
thinking of that now. And he was slapping and doing. I said, "Wow, how did you do that backwards?" Of course, that's nothing compared to how you play the bass. But let me ask you: there's so many people from all over the world reaching out to you to produce their music. So what is it about?
I found I'm sorry to interrupt.
It's okay.
Art, Mind, and Soul is the name of the new Randy Burnson record.
Well, what is it about the way you produce other people's music that sets you apart from others? Why trying to find a way to say this, but why do people want you? What is it that you bring that other people don't?
I don't know. I really couldn't put my finger on anything specific.
Well, how do you approach it when you may or may not know the person very well? Do you say, "Send me some of your music," or "Let me hear a demo," and then you start thinking about this or about that? Do you have a system that you put into place for any new project?
Yeah, if someone reaches out to me, I'm always interested to hear musically what they're thinking of. Once I understand that, in some cases, I've produced some people that, in a good way, they were confused, because they had so much music going in a lot of different directions that they weren't sure what to do. So then my position was to find something that held together, uh, in my opinion, to make a record. And so I would ask them to send me all their music. I would listen to it all. There's an example of a composer from Sicily that I worked with who was a film composer. And so, he was classically trained piano player, wonderful compositions, and he wanted to do a jazz type record, but he also wanted to include orchestral uh, types of embellishment, which is beautiful. And I love classical music anyway, so I have no problem with that. So he sent me like 23 pieces of music, and I listened to it all, and I picked 8 songs that I felt had a statement to make and on some level. They all had this uh, mood to them that seemed to fit together for me. And he was happy to get that feedback from me and really liked the idea of those 8 songs. And just to see if he wanted to make a 9-song set, I approached him with possibly doing a cover. And he said, yeah, I'd have no problem with that. So I asked him if he had ever heard of Three Views of a Secret, which was a Jaco Pastorius composition, and he had never heard it. So I sent him a copy of Jaco's version of it, and he flipped out and he said, yeah, I'd love to do that. And so I put it all together, and we made a really nice record. That came out on Blue Canoe, which is a label I've been A&Ring a lot.
Joseph Patrick Moore.
Patrick Moore,
Joseph Patrick Moore.
Joseph Patrick Moore, who I met about 5-6 years ago, and I've been putting out a lot of things that I've been producing on that label. We've become good friends, and he likes what I do, and he's a bass player.
Yes, I know. We had been corresponding via email for years, and we had never actually spoken to each other. We'd never met. We've still never met, but I interviewed him last year. He's out in Vegas now.
Yes,
for a Cirque du Soleil show or something like
the
that.
Steer.
Oh, my wife and I saw that show.
He's actually one, if not the only, musical director for that show.
Wow.
And that's an installation in Las Vegas at one of the hotels.
I don't know if he was quite at that stature when I talked to him. That probably would have come up in the conversation.
I think this is recent development.
Wow. So have you ever been approached by anyone and you listened to their music and you said, you know what? I don't think we're on the same plane. I don't think I can help you. I don't think we can work together. Has that ever happened? You don't have to mention any names.
No, well, there's maybe just one project out of all the. I think I'm getting close to 200 productions. So, but I think I can recall one project where, I didn't quite understand what the artist wanted, but we still did a record together, and in the end, he was happy with the way it came out. But it was, yeah, and maybe one more comes to mind where, and I won't mention names, where the artist had too many different directions in the music. There was like each song belonged in a separate genre, and that's really difficult to promote. So the bottom line was, I said, okay, I understand you want to do all these different songs, but in order to get a proper promotion for a record, it's got to mostly kind of go in a direction, so that whoever's helping to promote the record has a leg to stand on it to say, this is what the music is. But if every song goes into a different genre, it's impossible for anybody to try to promote the whole record as a whole, and I tried to explain that a few times, but they were pretty much incensed in making this record in that way. So I tried, and I even brought in some interesting elements to the record to help it. But I just think, and it was a cool record when it was finished, but it had no focus.
Yeah.
So
I've got a lot of ideas. I do plan to make a record next year because I've got so much material, and you know, like you're saying, this won't fit on this record, this won't fit on that record. I was a big fan of Chick Corea, and I liked how he had this project and he had this
right,
project, or even someone like Linda Ronstadt. She did the
exactly.
whole thing, and she did like a mariachi
He
thing,
did
and
a Mexican record,
yeah,
yeah. Mhm.
yeah. So I mean,
But each record had its direction. Yeah, instead of everything all at once on one record,
yeah.
usually it's hard enough to promote a record today. So really, it's to the advantage of the artist to find the focus and say, I want to do this. I want to do a fusion record, or I want to do a straight ahead record, or I want to do a folk record, whatever it is, just, try to gather the material so that it all fits under one roof.
Okay,
And
this
that's my job.
on a tangent here. I interviewed Marcus Miller a long time ago, and he said somebody was trying to get known as a bass player and trying to get work as a bass player. So he put together a demo, and this it's a different concept. It's a whole different purpose. But Marcus said every song on here sounds like it's a different dude playing it. But wouldn't you want to show that you can play in all these different styles so you can kind of be a chameleon on a demo tape where you want to?
Well, on a demo, yeah, it's a different story. And I guess it would show di diverse,
Yeah.
musicality. So in that sense, you could get hired from a lot of different people doing different things.
Well, I was a little surprised that he said that. What about playing? Are you doing? I'm obviously very busy with the producing, but I still get emails from the Baked Potato and wherever else you're with Jeff
Yeah,
here and there. So how much playing are you doing these days?
I'd say since 2012, I've any
That's a long time ago.
yeah, I know. That's when I left the Jackets. So when I was in the Jackets, I was traveling maybe 9 months out of the year. That's just a lot.
Yeah.
After the Jackets, I was traveling. It was almost like completely reversed 180. I was only traveling about 2 or 3 months out of the year. So, and that's sustained pretty much until last year, when for whatever reason I ended up doing extensive touring with 3 different bands. So it was more like 5.5 months on the road, which is a lot more than I had been doing. But I took it on, so it was all interesting stuff. I mean, I did two tours, U.S. and Europe tour with Oz Noise Trio with Dennis Chambers, and I did 3 tours. Two of them were short, one was long, but 3 tours with Mike Stern's quintet, which was also with Dennis Chambers.
I didn't know you played with Max. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, in fact, I'm associate producing a record right now, a piano player in Atlanta named Randy Hexter. That's almost done too. And Mike Stern's a guest guitarist on the record. So,
That was
uh,
fun.
yeah. But I did a run in Australia with Mike, and a run on the West Coast with Mike, and I did a whole almost 3 4 week tour in Europe with Mike. So it
I
was a bunch
interviewed
of
him
that.
for my guitar site. He said, we don't get paid to play. We play for free. We get paid to travel.
That's that's it. Yeah. So and then I did a bunch of Jeff Lorber touring. So I did a full on European tour with Jeff, which was about 3 weeks, and then a lot of scattered dates around the year. So it all ended up being about 5.5, almost 6 months of of traveling, which was a lot more than I had done since 2012.
I'm trying to remember the name of Mike's bass player I interviewed. Great player. He's from Azerbaijan. You know who he lives in New York. He's
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. I think I know who that is, but I don't remember his name.
oh, I'll remember it as soon as we're done here. Um, Let me ask you, for bass players only is really a bass instruction site, notwithstanding 850 plus consecutive weekly bass player interviews. But and I also mentioned at the beginning, a lot of them are over 50. So these are people, mostly men. We're getting more women now these days too, but men in their 50s, 60s, 70s. I've got some students in their 80s, and these people are not trying to make a career out of being a musician. They don't want to tour the world and play, sold out arenas to their adoring fans. They want to get together with their buddies and play some classic rock riffs or some blues shuffles or some, maybe
Yeah.
funk R&B or a little slapping, whatever, walking bass. So I just
That's
trying to
okay.
give you a context here. Oh, they love it. Now they've got some time. They've always wanted to do it. Maybe they've dabbled. Maybe they've got arthritis or tendonitis or those kinds of things. So I want to take this opportunity to ask you, what advice can you impart to somebody like that who wants to learn to play bass? What should they be thinking about? What kind of goals should they have? What questions should they be asking? Hey, jump in anywhere.
Well, you know, if you're not, look, I've been playing now for a really long time. So if someone wants to take up the bass and they're starting out a little bit later in their life, and it's really, I think if you remember, and I certainly still do, and I try to keep that uh, vibe within me, which was when I first started playing, it was more about joy. It wasn't about learning scales and I'm self-taught, so and I was playing trumpet back then. Playing I played trumpet for 12 years, but when I started playing bass with these little bands in high school and stuff, it was just a joyous thing. I didn't think about money really, about being paid to do it. I didn't think about heavy duty shedding or studying. I was motivated to learn songs, but it was fun. It was all fun. So fun, have fun with it, enjoy it. If you want to study something, think about what it might be. I have a friend now who's I don't, there's a term for it. I don't hardly ever use it, but they call them weekend warriors, where they just play on the weekend with a little band. That's great. It really adds a whole wonderful element to your life, to just do that. Something that you look forward to, say, and it's challenging on some level, but don't make it like a chore. Just keep the fun aspect to it all. If you want to learn a song, just learn it the best you can. If you really want to try to perfect it, it's all depends on the person too, how motivated they are to become a better musician, or they're just happy being what they are and getting through the gig and not worrying about making mistakes or any of that, because really, even that, I know I've worked with some people that are very strict and pretty intense about playing the music correctly, no mistakes. And, they would get pretty intense if there was an error. There's some Buddy Rich tapes out there that exemplify that, where he would say, if I hear one more clam, I'm going to dump the whole band and get an all LA band or so. There was a, um, a statement by him with that. And look, that's all on a professional level, and on that level, anything can happen, you know. And I certainly have been there many times with, you know, bands, and everything had to be as perfect as possible. But my experience for 20, well, for 32 years, 22 records, with the Yellowjackets was really wonderful in that sense, because we strive to play the music as best as we could every night, every day in the studio, whatever. But there was this rule that was known in the band, that if you didn't make mistakes, then you weren't trying hard enough to, you know, play the best you can and try things and experiment with things on the, you know, on the spot. Uh, as a member of the Yellowjackets for that long, and having that was really helping to grow, helping each person to grow. I think it kept all of us pretty loose and comfortable, and you know, we were never afraid to try things, and if they didn't work, it's okay. It's not, you know, it's not you know, major heart surgery or anything like that. It's just playing music, you know. So anyone that's trying to learn to play a little bit so they can play on a weekend, just remember to keep the fun element and enjoy the moment. And it's also a cool social thing, because you're playing with other guys or gals, and you're entertaining people. So you're serving a wonderful, beautiful purpose, you know, to do that.
That's great. No, nobody has ever died from somebody playing a wrong note.
Oh, except that there is one thing.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny you brought that up, because there is one place where you have to be careful about that, and that's in the Cirque du Soleil gigs, because you're dealing with acrobats, and if you play if you play something that's really weird, it could distract them, and they could fall down or do hurt themselves. So they're under pressure to play everything perfectly every night. I
Wow.
talked to Joseph about that. It's I don't want to say it's stressful, but it's definitely something that you have to focus on.
Wow. Well, for a reason that most people wouldn't
No,
naturally.
I mean, yeah, the guys that we're talking about uh, won't be supporting acrobats doing astonishing, crazy stunts, you know. So
Well, actually, the circus. I remember. I knew somebody
yeah,
played in the circus. They said that is the hardest book in show business. And just and then you talk about it's not quite as graceful as Cirque du Soleil.
no, no, but yeah, Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Circus. I had a friend that played drums in that for a while, and he did say it was hard. Not so enjoyable musically, because he's a jazz drummer, but he said it was really hard.
I'm not sure that the
That book.
living accommodations were all that luxurious.
I don't think so. No, I don't think they were staying at Four Seasons or anything.
Talking about the Yellowjackets, you seem to have a real nice camaraderie between you. I remember the first time I saw you, it was on Miami Beach, like in the late 80s. I was playing with the Fifth Dimension, and
Oh my God.
I went with the drummer, and we went. There was a club very hard to pronounce. It's called Fifth Street in Miami Beach, and then before you guys were playing, I said, "Is that Jimmy Haslip? I think that's Jimmy Haslip." And I said, "Look, he's wearing his watch on his right arm. That's got to be Jimmy, because I know he's a lefty."
That's it.
And you
That's,
played Somewhere Over the Rainbow, solo, unaccompanied
oh
bass.
wow, yeah, that was crazy. I was
Because there's a song about Oz or something on the
there
album.
was a song I wrote with Russ called Oz, and then at a certain point when we were traveling, I I heard a version of Somewhere Over the Rainbow, but I heard the Judy Garland version. And I thought, what a beautiful song, and especially sung by her. She was incredible. So just to fool around one day, I learned the melody and then I would just practice it and then one day I told Russ, hey, how about if I played Somewhere Over the Rainbow before we go into Oz? And Russ went, wow, that's cool. And and he knew it. So eventually he started accompanying me and we would just do the two of us play it. And then there's a version that I used for a charity record. I found a live version of us playing in Europe somewhere, and Russ had sampled a bunch of little things from the movie, The Wizard of Oz, and put it into his sampler. And he had it, in those days you could program the sampler so that a key would have one thing and then another key would have something else. So he he put a few of these samples into his keyboard,
Like what?
like like one of the Munchkins going, "Follow the yellow brick road." So so it got more elaborate as time went on. He would start with some orchestral kind of thing on the synth and add those little samples. And I think there was one by Judy Garland say, "My, this isn't Kansas anymore," or something like that. And then I would play the song, and he would accompany me. And then as soon as that was done, Will Kennedy would bust into a groove, and we'd go into this tune that was called Oz.
On the Spin.
Yeah, on the spin. Yeah.
Love that album.
And a lot of people didn't know what the hell we were doing. They were going, "Why are they doing this?" Because they didn't know the song really was called Oz, so they had no connection with that. So, but it was fun to do, and I found a live recording of that. It was pretty good. I think it was in Germany. Uh, yeah, and so I was donating music and helping to gather music and for Make-A-Wish Foundation CD.
Yes.
So I met this guy that was trying to get a CD together to sell for funding. The East Coast um, Make-A-Wish Foundation Society over there. I think they were based out of Syracuse, New York, and you know, I, I'll do anything for charity. So,
There's a song on the Spin called, is it called Prayer for El Salvador?
oh yeah, yeah,
Beautiful. I
that's
love what you do on the bass on the fretless. Bow, wow.
and that's yeah. Russ Ferrante wrote that.
Beautiful. Like Geraldine, the Spin, Flower
Yeah.
thing.
Oh yeah. Well,
Billy Strayhorn.
that's right. That's a Billy. There's a Billy Strayhorn tune. A flower is a lovesome thing.
Yes.
And then it's I found this other song that I really liked. What the heck was the name of that? That was boy, if I have to go back and check that out. But I found another very obscure jazz tune. I'm trying to think the piano player. I even know a story about this piano player who kind of ended up in a he ended up in a insane asylum.
Powell?
Uh,
Bud Powell?
Bud Powell, thank you. You know. Okay, so it was a Bud Powell song called, I think it was called Quasimodo or something like that. Maybe not that, but there was another. kind of crazy, kind of rhythm changes type of tune, or maybe it was even like a minor blues. I have to go back and look at it. But there was a weird thing I heard combining those two, so we made a medley out of a Flowers, a Lonesome Thing, and this Bud Powell tune.
That sounds familiar.
I
Yeah.
could even look it up, but it's been a long time since I've heard that. But yeah, that record was recorded in I know we're going off on a tangent, but that record was recorded in Oslo, Norway,
Oh,
with an incredible engineer who's not with us anymore, named Jan Erik Kunschag, who engineered over 300 ECM records with Manfred Eicher. Um, and that's the studio we worked in Oslo was Rainbow Studios, which is where they did a majority of ECM records, including one of my favorite Keith Jarrett records, a record called Belonging with, um, you
Gary
know,
Duke and Jack DeJohnette, just a guess.
no, it was John Christensen,
Oh,
who's, yeah, these are all Scandinavian musicians. Jan Gabarek,
yep.
saxophone, and I think it was Palle Danielson on string bass.
Oh, it was a Palle, I think, right? Yeah.
Yeah, Palle, yeah. I think that's how you pronounce it, but all
Well,
right, let's see if I can. Crazy. I haven't. I don't go back. I don't go backwards very often. I'm just constantly going forward. So,
you brought back a lot of great memories for me. Hey, while you're doing that, I wanted to ask you if you could briefly tell me about your basses and your gear and strings, effects, all that stuff.
oh, oh, okay. So, so let's see. I'm doing a lot of different things today because I have, like I said, I haven't been touring that much, but um, I'm still with Keith Roscoe.
Mhm.
I'm still, I think I'm still on the team. I haven't got kicked off yet, I don't think, with Mike Tobias. Uh, and, um, I've worked a little bit with this Japanese luthier, a guy named Hirotaka Kiyoichi. He's got a company called Innerwood, and he built me a whole bunch of instruments. They're more like studio kind of basses that I have here. So there's kind of three bass companies, but I've worked with, as on a users list with a few other companies. There's a Wilkins guitars and it's still, well, I haven't done anything for them in a long time, but I did some stuff with Yamaha for a while, and they built some nice instruments. Um,
I would guess the body is different just because of the way you hold it, right? The shape of the
it's
body.
left hand, yeah, left-handed body, but a right-handed neck. Basically,
You
that's
are
the
one of a
base.
kind.
So yeah, and there's a small boutique company that I've endorsed in the past that I have a really nice bass from, a guy named Jim Tyler.
Hmm.
Yeah, he builds really nice. He's still around. So um amps, I've been endorsing a small boutique company called Trickfish.
Yep.
Uh, but I've also been doing some work with Mark Bass.
Ah,
Yeah, out of Italy. So and they're wonderful.
Ricardo and Sebo. I think, yeah, I know those
Yeah,
guys.
and the Marco yeah, I can't pronounce Marco's last name, but he's the CEO, and he's fantastic guy. Um, he's really helped me out with some touring overseas. I know Marcus Miller is one of their top endorsee guys. So yeah, so there's that. Um, I um, I'm still hooked up with Dunlop strings, but I'm still a fan of I have I have lots of leftover strings from Dean Markley. There's a round wound string that I use that they make, but I'm not in touch with the company. I'm mainly dealing with Dunlop, and Dunlop made me a special set of strings, so those are great. I like
You use
those.
round wound on your fretless
Yeah,
or yeah?
I have, yeah, and I have a couple of these studio basses with flat wounds, just to have that available. So yeah, so there's that. Moody straps. Are you familiar with Moody?
Yes.
They're really cool. Trying to see if I have a Moody strap around.
That's okay. What about any effects or processing gear?
Well, the Dunlop's making a lot of effects. I think they bought MXR actually, Dunlop, and so they have, so yeah, they have a lot of nice effects there if you want them. I don't use a lot of effects, especially on the road. Occasionally, I would bring out a chorus pedal, and that's about it. I think once or twice I brought out an octave divider. It's just kind of fun.
Just thinking fretless bass, and you mentioned ECM. I was thinking, that
Oh yeah, Eberhard Weber.
yeah.
Yes, yeah. But I'm mostly playing fretted now.
Oh,
Yeah. So I played fretted, from the very start of me playing bass up until 1988. That's when I decided to try my hand at fretless, and my Tobias made me a beautiful 5-string fretless, and
he
I
did
was,
that for me too. I love it.
yeah, they're great. And so I played fretless exclusively, I think, at that point till 98. So about 10 years.
I still think of you as primarily a fretless player.
That's,
I'm
well,
glad we're talking.
yeah. So
Uh,
since 98, I went back to fretted, but I have some like little techniques to kind of make the fretted sound a little more fretless like. So I've incorporated some of that in my playing. Um, so what else? There's cables. I just recently hooked up with a high-end boutique company called Analysis Plus.
hmm.
They make these super duper high-end cables with silver wire and all this stuff. So,
Can you really, really hear the difference?
mhm.
I guess it was
Well,
just
it's not only that, it's they're also really well made, so they don't break.
uh,
If you buy some cables like at Guitar Center, eventually they fall apart or they get stolen. So these cables are pretty heavy duty. I don't bring them on the road with me though. I use them in the studio, and then I just use some regular old. What do I have here? Excuse me. Let me I have. See if I can grab this guy. This is what is this? This is I don't even know what this is, but oops, there's a little collision. This is you could see that's just like a regular
uh,
kind of guitar center cable. Let me grab my guitar here. This is on the edge of falling down. This is what I've been using today to overdub on stuff. It's made by Innerwood, and it just looks like a Fender bass. So, uh, but it's a 9 volt preamp. It's got the right in here. It's got the two 9 volts in there. So
ooh,
it's pretty pretty powerful. It's got Bartolini pickups.
hmm.
You know,
I
those,
have Bartolini's in your Tobias basses too, because I know he likes to.
yeah. Pretty much exclusively use Bartolini's. I don't really have an endorsement with them, but I support them. For me, since Mike Tobias turned me on to Bartolini, I just fell in love with the sound that they produced, and so I just been uh, dealing. I think I have maybe a couple of basses that have something else, like a Seymour Duncan pickup. One of them, Roscoe made me a bass with Seymour Duncan pickups. But for me, Bartolini's the ticket.
And I like Clyde Clark. He's a great
Yeah.
player.
Yeah.
Um,
So
what about the future, Jimmy? Is there anything else that you haven't already mentioned that either you plan to do, you want to do, you hope to do? Is there anything that you've always wanted to do but haven't gotten around to yet, or anything on your someday I'm gonna fill in the blank?
I've kind of done a lot of stuff. Uh,
Yes, you have.
yeah, and I'm happy just continuing in the same fashion. Um, I'm really happy just predominantly producing records. Uh, I worked with a lot of great producers in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, and I learned a lot from all of them. And I've even learned more since all that too, with technology and everything that's going on. Um, so I'm happy just continuing on this path, uh, working with people and making records. I don't even know how long that's going to last. I mean, the business has changed so much, now we're getting into the um, newer technology like AI, and I don't know what my future holds as far as that's concerned, but at this point in time, I just feel perfectly comfortable working on music, and every day I'm either doing a bass overdub or making calls to organize sessions virtually with musicians around the world and artists around the world. I'm also, I've been last, well, for about 6 years now, I've been A&Ring uh, stuff to Blue Canoe. In the last maybe 3 years, another label called Outside in Music. And just recently, I started sending some stuff to a small label in Florida. Uh, and I'm actually looking to just help people. That's really where my head's at right now. So, just even in the last few days, I got some calls from some people that finished some really beautiful records, and they just don't know what to do with them. It's really hard to get uh, in touch with anyone at a major label. I still have some contact with, there's the label that when I left the Yellowjackets, we were on a label called Mac Avenue. Uh,
Detroit.
yeah, and they have a main office here in Los Angeles. So, um, I try to do stuff with them. Uh, it's a little more difficult because they're looking to be their own kind of thing, and so if you bring stuff in that's finished and produced, they're not really that open to taking things on like that. It depends, I guess. But I'm just trying to help people get homes for their projects, or if there is no solution on that level, I have ideas, and I have also contacts with other ways of putting a record out and doing it kind of on your own, online. Although that's starting to change as well. Just CD Baby is now somebody else bought it, and it's like a little weird, I think. Uh, I think it got bought by a maker company, disc makers. I
Okay.
think disc makers bought CD Baby. So I don't know if I have a lot of confidence in that anymore. Um, there was Bandcamp was another place, and that just got bought by some people that I don't know if they know what they're doing. I don't. I haven't figured that out yet, but I've already gotten feedback from some people that it's not what it used to be. So, if you want to put something on Bandcamp now, I don't know that you get the same attention or results. So it's getting a little weird, to get records out. And it's not even like hard copies anymore. Now we're just talking about really right now only streaming, not even downloads.
Yeah.
Downloads is starting to, get smaller and smaller. And now streaming is like it. And that's really crazy. In fact, somebody told me the other day that, yeah, places like TikTok, I guess that's a place to put music. But
Okay.
I don't know. And now Congress they're trying to dump TikTok here. So,
Who
it's
knows?
pretty wild. Yeah, it's pretty wild.
We'll see
But
whether the dust settles in this stuff.
yeah, but there's still radio, like Sirius radio. That's cool. Um, and then, on a smaller basis, if you want to manufacture some records, it's very cost effective right now because, like I said, people don't even want to buy CDs. But I notice still that there's a CD buying public out there, and if you're doing a gig and you
Yeah.
bring CDs, you can sell them on your gig. So there's that sort of commerce that's still available, but it's way, way different
Oh,
than,
Jimmy, this is, I think, the fourth time that we did an interview, and I don't think I asked you this any of the other three times, so I'll ask you now. If you could imagine, what would you be if you weren't a bass player? Something outside of music.
yeah. So I've thought of that even before I became a professional musician, and that would have been a chef because I like cooking. Um, and the the one thing I told my parents when I quit college to go on the road with a top 40 band, I was just turning 18 because they were really concerned. And I said, well, look, if this doesn't work out in a few years, I'll go to chef school. I'll learn how to do pastry chef or something. And they said, well, at least our son is thinking about, something in the future, and he's not just rolling the dice, without any um, recourse for something to fall back on.
You cook a lot at home or bake a
I
lot?
do. My wife loves my cooking, so I cook. I cooked for her last night as well. But she's also a good cook. So,
Great
uh,
combination.
and then uh, she had two sons when I met her, and one of her sons, our my youngest stepson, he's a chef, and he's won a James Beard Award he writes cookbooks,
Oh, wow.
and so it's all in the family there. So, and I
Yeah.
enjoy hanging with him because I watch him do what he's doing, and he's a very um, uh, he's very knowledgeable about a lot of things, and he's really into something that I'm totally into, and that's farm to table.
Ah,
So, organic and natural. ingredients. And
My wife
eventually,
sought out some restaurants like that when we were in Southern California. She's good at finding those. So,
oh yeah, yeah, and I've been a vegetarian since 1970. So yeah,
so you
so
have two things in common with Paul McCartney.
yeah, two things only. Yeah,
And bass and vegetarian. But
yeah,
Jimmy, this is great. I really love getting together with you. Last time it was at your house. We came over and we
yes,
with you in your living room, and I watched
yes.
that.
I remember that, and it's and this whole thing off the record, maybe even. I just remember, uh, doing that interview, and then when I was looking for this bass player actor thing, and all of a sudden there you were.
Uh,
And again, I appreciate your help with that.
well, my pleasure. Thank you so much, Jimmy. Really appreciate it, and keep doing what you're doing. You really inspire me on so many levels because I'd love to sit down and talk to you more about producing, and that's a whole different concept from what I've always learned and done and practiced. I've become an author and an educator, and I'm also a player.
I know that.
So I've got a lot of stuff that I'd like to do, and you're a wealth of information. So I look forward to picking your brain if you'll let me.
I'd be happy to, and I'd be happy to help in any way.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Much luck and continued success to you always.
Thank you so much for
You're
having.
welcome. For BassPlayersOnly.com, I'm John Liebman, founder and first baseman. If you've ever wanted to learn bass, you should know that right now there are thousands of people inside the For Bass Players Only community, a lot of them over 50, and they are learning bass and having so much fun playing music that they love. You should come join them and experience that incredible transformation for yourself. As I always say, you're never too old to groove, so let's play bass. Thanks again to my special guest, Jimmy Haslip. I will see you all next week right here, same time, same place. In the meantime, let's play bass.